Well, welcome everybody to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. This is the birthday of NASA today, October 1st. It is the 66th birthday. It started in 1958, what we know as the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and we're going to give you a little bit of that history. We being Marty Winkle, my co-producer here. Hi, Marty. How you doing? You're looking around. Everything going fine out there in the cyber world?
Yep. You may want to move the mic a little bit closer to you.
All right. We'll do that, sir. Move the mic a little bit closer. I've been a little bit quiet uh, with my outdoor voice being used indoors a lot, but good. We got a birthday show for you today. After all, it's not just NASA's birthday; it's a couple other men's birthdays that we're going to talk about here. I'm looking on YouTube to get us up there live, and not don't see me up there yet. So I'm always compromised at doing this stuff, folks. So let's go back to it there. But welcome all of you newcomers out there. We know there's quite a few of you. We appreciate you finally finding our humble podcast born out of the pandemic 4.5 years ago. Marty and I have done over 1,150 episodes. This is all part of our U.S. Space Walk of Fame Foundation that for over 20 years, our nonprofit here in Florida has been preserving the birth of the American space age like nobody else. And our monuments with over 30 handprints of astronauts are at Spaceview Park, the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and shuttle monuments that are out there. And we have a humble museum here that's its sixth location. It was in several malls over the years. Over 22 years, we've maintained a museum. We've been in the present location at 308 Pine Street in downtown Titusville for 9 years. So we look forward to July celebrating our 10th year here at this facility. So, and I'm looking at my tablet here to see if we're gone live. I'm sure we've gone live, but I can't find it, Marty. Doesn't pop up on my phone here for some reason. So
We're live because you got to.
who's saying hi to us already?
Yeah, well, Jesse is.
Oh, hi,
You're
Jesse. My daughter Jessica in Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia, up there, hard hit by these floods from Hurricane Helene. So I'll say hi to my granddaughters McKinley and Macy there. Bop and Scoot there watching. They're toddlers still. So, and what we choose here for our backdrop, Marty? Appropriately enough, that is the administration building in Washington, D.C. for NASA, NASA's headquarters, now called the Mary Jackson Building after the first black female engineer. And this is at 300 East Street Northwest. 9 stories. Actually, in front of it is Hidden Figures Way. They renamed it in 2019. And hope that Christopher Mick is finding this interesting. We know John Darlington's watching, and Robert Zelink is also watching today. So thank you all. Trying to find my live feed here, Marty. I don't know. Usually it pops right up there for me, but I'll have to do some more figuring out here. This smart tablet there. Sorry to be so discursive. It's so I can talk to you all out there, but Marty will relay that to me. Okay, there we go. See what happens with that link. Any rate, here is our museum. What it looks like. Oop, tipping my hat there to a birthday. There we've got the. That is on our shuttle gallery here at the American Space Museum. That is just one of the galleries we have here. This one actually has hardware that was used in the launch control complex that fueled the space shuttle. So we find that a one-of-a-kind thing. There we go. Got you guys up there now. Just have to reboot everything. Carlton Bailey saying hello. Happy birthday, NASA, Carlton says. Jamon 3, that's my daughter Jessie, and McKinley and Macy. And like I said, they are up there in that hard hit area outside of Asheville, North Carolina, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, Oh my gosh, Southwest Virginia, this has been a life-changing reshaping of some of the people's lives up there. So keep them in your prayers and thoughts up there. So also keep our humble museum in your prayers and thoughts. As a nonprofit, we accept donations anytime. Go to our webpage. Up at the top, it has donations. And if you go to the thanks button on the previous shows on Stay Curious, you will be able to make a donation up to $500 on there. So I'd be remiss if we had astronomy yesterday, but we had Samantha, Space Coast Samantha on Friday, and she set a record of over 3,400 viewers on our humble program. So Samantha, thank you so much for you and your husband John. She's written a book about space with a sloth as his character. Samantha, thank you very much for all that you do and are going to do here at our American Space Museum. Check her out at Space Coast Sam on there. So we're expecting to increase our numbers, folks, and that's what it's all about. Well, happy 100th birthday to President Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter turned 100 years old today, October 1st. He was the 39th president from 1977 to 81. Yes, he has a NASA tie in his history. Here he is with his wife, First Lady Rosalind, and their daughter, what's her name, Amy Carter?
Rosalind.
No, that's the First Lady Rosalind.
Yeah, what'd you say?
The daughter, though.
Oh,
I want to say Amy, but that's not right. Someone will tell me what it is there. Dave Stengy's watching Detroit Tigers playoff baseball there. And thank you for the prayers for people affected by the storm, like my daughter, who's fine, but they're compromised even getting around the getting their groceries. Some people on there.
Amy Carter.
Amy Carter. Okay, that's what I think I said. President Carter, 100 years old, born, of course, in Plains, Georgia, humble peanut farmer. President there at the end of the 70s. He put his words on the classic gold disc that was attached to Voyager 1 and 2 that have left our solar system. And his excerpts from his comments were, "This is a present from a small distant world, a token of our sounds, our science, our images, our music, our thoughts, and our feelings. We are attempting to survive our time so we may live into yours. We hope someday, having solved the problems we face, to join a community of galactic civilizations. This record represents our hope and our determination and our goodwill in a vast and awesome universe." Those are awesome words for you to put on there, Mr. President. When Voyager 2 was launched in August 1977 and September was the Voyager 1, they're the most distant objects made by man over I think they're about 12 billion miles away from the Earth, beyond the sun's gravitational influence, in fact. Let's see, Jimmy Carter, born in Plains. This is a picture of him taken, I guess, today. The oldest living ex-president, surpassing George Bush, who died at age, George Herbert Walker Bush, who of course, his son's alive. He was 94. Previous record holders were Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, Herbert Hoover, and John Adams. Though he was president until 1981, it was, 21 years later, Carter was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his decades of untiring effort to find peaceful solutions to international conflicts, to advance democracy and human rights, and to promote economical and social development. So whether you're red, white, blue, green, black, brown, whatever your affiliation, you've got to respect 100-year-old Mr. President Jimmy Carter today. So see how long he goes on. There he was on his 54th birthday. That's Roy Shearer, the director at Kennedy Space Center, escorting him around there, and an engineer showing him in the foreground there, the crawler they were talking about. Well, we also have an astronaut birthday today of this astronaut, Eric Boe. Eric Allen Boe was born October 1st, 1964 in Miami, Florida, but grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's got a Jimmy Carter, Georgia tie there. Pilot for STS-126 and STS-133, the final flight of Discovery. No doubt would have been a commander had there been more flights after 135. Air Force test pilot, Iraqi war veteran. He was the first astronaut in the U.S. commercial spaceflight crews. He was going to fly the Boeing Starliner as the commander, and he was unable to fly due to medical reasons and was replaced by Mike Fink, as we look at another picture of Eric Boe there. And then Mike Fink was replaced by Chris Ferguson, who was replaced by now the infamous, stranded up there on the space station, Butch Wilmore on there. So he had a hand in the Boeing Starliner's development there. And let's see. Lynn McDaniel in Tampa, one of our ace followers there. Hello, Lynn. She says, quote, that Eric is a great gentleman and a Civil Air supporter. And thank you, Lynn McDaniel, for always following us on Facebook and other places. She is a educator and brings her class here every year to the American Space Museum. So Eric Boe is, how old did I say he was? I think I said he was 66. No, he's 60. Born in 1964. 60 years young, Marty. So he is still involved with Boeing Starliner, by the way, in their crews there. So hello to Steve Jokums up there at Lake County Spaceport. Doug Forrest is saying hello from California. And Bill Whiting is go Tigers. And I'll go with you guys with the Tigers. Who they playing, Marty? Don't even know who they're playing. Marty's a Yankee fan, so he's got that look of angst on his face when he has to talk about any other team. He's going to look it up. Bill or Dave Stangy's going to tell us, as we appreciate you all on here today, enjoying some Stay Curious. I want to give a shout out. I always forget to put a slide up, Marty, so here's the slide. That is your Crew 72, all right? 7 astronauts and 4 cosmonauts are in space right now. That's 11 on the space station. And then you got 3 on the Tiangong space station. So that makes 11 and 3 is 14. Well, these all slept together Monday, working half a day and then enjoying each other's company. Up there, Sonny Williams, of course, on the far right. Butch Wilmer's like, when am I going to get out of here? With his arms folded like that. Love in the back, the very back there is, let's see if I can point him out there. There is Don Pettit. He's 69 years old. Right there, 65-year-old Michael Barrett. 2 senior citizens orbiting the Earth, Marty. And you got, we mentioned Mike Barrett, Butch, Sonny's up there, Don Pettit. Matthew Dominic is the other American up there with Jeanette Epps. And then the 4 Russians up there whose names I'm not going to try to pronounce. So go outside, download the app, and see that when the International Space Station is going overhead, it's really easy to see. And yes, Marty.
Tigers 6, Houston 0, 6th inning.
Really? And see, that sounds so strange to me that's the American League, right? Because I just can't envision Houston in the American League. I went to Astrodome, and think of all the astronauts that went to the Astrodome when Houston was in the National League. So Carlton chimes in, my Braves tomorrow, UCX Orioles, World Series. That'd be a good one. So looks like we'll be talking a little baseball on Stay Curious here. Yeah, go ahead, Marty.
Okay.
All right. You were finding it hard to believe that Houston's in the American League too, right?
No, I mean, initially, yes, for the first 2 or 3 years. But I think they've been in the American League for over 10 years now.
Well,
I'll check.
that shows you that I don't follow baseball much anymore. I was done when they didn't have the World Series and those millionaires went on strike. But I'll play baseball on the moon someday is what I'll be dreaming about. All right, so let's get to the meat of the show today to celebrate the 60th birthday of NASA. All right, and many of you know the history of NASA better than I do. I know it pretty well. I'm still going to use some crib notes here. We're going to talk about their famous logos. Okay, uh, looking at logos there, their NASA traces its roots to the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the NACA. That logo up there at the top. National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. That's a tough one to commit to memory because you want to use that A for aeronautics, not Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. How did the National Advisory Committee come about? How old was it? Well, it started in 1914 when, though America was the birthplace of aviation, we fell behind Europe quickly. They had an aircraft called the Diamond that was equivalent to the Orville and Wilbur Wright Flyer. So, determined to regain American leadership in aviation, the United States Congress created the Aviation Section of the Army Single Corps in 1959, establishing the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Over the next 40 years, NACA would conduct aeronautical research in the support of the Air Force, Army, Navy, and the civilian sector. At the end of World War II, they started getting interested in guided missiles and supersonic aircraft and began developing the Bell X-1 with the Air Force. NACA did, of course, that broke the sound barrier with Chuck Yeager behind it. Thank you. So, but when Sputnik was launched in 1957, all right, October 1957, they turned the research over to the America's first satellite research went to the Naval Research Laboratories Project Vanguard. All right, now Project Vanguard, of course, was not successful. They turned it over to the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, and that's the emblem above President Eisenhower's head there. The Army Ballistic Missile Agency would launch Explorer 1, America's first satellite, February 1st, 1958. Of course, the ABMA was headed by Wernher von Braun, the Nazi rocket pioneer that we captured at the end of World War II. He actually surrendered. Operation Paperclip, Marty. Operation Paperclip started today, October 1st, 1945. Was when Secretary of War Patterson approved the plan to bring German scientists to the U.S. at Fort Bliss and White Sands Proving Ground. So October 1st, quite a seminal date in NASA history, for sure. And, Houston, 11 years has been the National League, Marty's telling me, or American League.
1 year.
Well, you missed it by 1 year. Good for you, Marty. Go Tigers, though, I guess we'll say. All right, so as I'm giving you a little book report here, Eisenhower decided to split the military and civil spacecraft programs. This was a big decision to make, money-wise, all right? But the Department of Defense's projects came under the Advanced Research Projects Agency. NASA was then established in July 29th, 1958, with the signing of the National Aeronautic Space Act, and operations began 66 years ago today on October 1st, 1958. And as we said, here's NASA's headquarters behind me here in Washington. All right, so they had 8,000 employees in 1958, a huge organization. They absorbed the Naval Research Lab, and the Army's Jet Propulsion Lab, that of course became famous. We're going to talk a little bit about the Jet Propulsion Lab as we're going to look at some of NASA's greatest moments and greatest spacecraft. And we want you to chime in what you think is NASA's greatest moments. Of course, the Apollo 11 moon landing is on everybody's list. It better be number one. So all of this restructuring by President Eisenhower and then handing it off to President Kennedy, that then took it all and wanted to go to the moon, all started 66 years ago. And we did jump back into the lead in space. All right, so that's a little history of NASA quickly. One of the key players, of course, President Dwight Eisenhower, who was not only a military general, he was the leader of the Allied forces in World War II and orchestrated the Normandy invasion. And I was very impressed by Marty when I went to the Ike Eisenhower uh, uh, presidential library where he was born and everything is in Kansas. I want to say it's not Topeka. It's where all the railroads were. All the cattle came into. Anyway, it's quite a place. Maybe you've been there, and quite impressed with one of our great leaders of all time for sure, President Dwight Eisenhower. That is in Abilene. Abilene, Abilene. There's a song called Abilene. So, Abilene, Kansas, is where he grew up, which is, by the way, about, as I recall, just about 2.5 hours from the Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas, in there. Yeah, Marty.
Actually, Mark, Vice President Nixon under Eisenhower was the first official to propose going to the moon.
Eisenhower was?
No, Nixon.
Oh, Nixon when he was vice president?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Johnson jumped on the bandwagon, and he's the one who actually convinced or helped convince Kennedy to go to the moon.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us on our USEAC family microphone there. The USEAC family, brothers Tom and Mark, and Tom's wife Vicki, have been great donators to us all here at the American Space Museum in more than just financial ways. Hello, Dean Babcock. Good to see him watching today. So let's get into a couple fun things here about NASA's 66th birthday. Should have brought bought a cake and all that stuff, but happy birthday. Oh, well, I guess I'm going backwards. There. This was the first emblem for NASA, okay? National Aeronautics and Space Administration. And Marty, I love pointing out aeronautics, okay? Look how friendly our skies are, to coin an airplane phrase. The aeronautics part of this has made air travel just so routine. God forbid we have a wreck, because I mentioned it, but it's been a long time since we've had a couple fatal crashes. Those Boeing jets that had computer problems were the last ones, and they always figure out what it is. Travel is so safe. Living here in Titusville, Florida, just 50 miles from Orlando, we're hearing all the time about the record-breaking numbers of people going through Orlando International Airport. I cannot stargaze in my backyard without seeing airplanes going to OAI or up to Sanford Airport up there. So the skies are so safe because of this smart decision to create this agency to oversee aviation and it's worked. And then as far as space, we know that when we look at other companies having trouble right now, even the startups and so forth, many of them don't rely on the legacy of NASA's old timers. That some I think are actually reinventing the wheel. But the NASA logos date back to 1959. All right. This is the NASA official administrative insignia. It's called the NASA seal. The sphere represents a planet. The stars represent space. The red chevron, in the alternate shape of the constellation Andromeda, is a wing representing aeronautics. The latest design in hypersonic wings at the time when this logo was developed was the slick back wing. And then the orbiting spacecraft going around the wing. It is known officially as the insignia, or also the seal. And it's used by the Office of the Administrator, and it's a standalone without the meatball or the worm that we're going to talk about here. And I know some of you don't want me to talk about the worm, do they, Marty? Marty's laughing. Okay, so but that's why didn't they just put the Earth on that? The yellow ball is kind of weird to me. And then you've got the chevron. You got a on the yellow planet is the shadow of that chevron vector there. But they should have put the Earth in there. And here I would argue that this is the most recognized piece of artwork in the world. Marty, what do you think?
Well, either that or Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse?
One or the other, yeah.
All right, I go one other soda company.
Coke.
Yeah, I think Coke's probably the most recognized logo in the world. This has got to be up there, though. Everybody knows what this is all about. The meatball was designed after NASA Lewis Research Center illustrator's design was chosen for the new agency's official seal that we just saw. Executive Secretary of NASA asked James Modarelli, Modarelli, the head of the reports division at Lewis Research Center, to design a logo that can be used for less formal purposes. So this is the formal NASA seal that they call the insignia. And this is the informal logo. Modarelli simplified the seal, leaving only the white stars and the orbital path of a round field of blue with a red vector. He then added the NASA lettering. Okay. Now that NASA lettering is like the worm logo. All right. I don't think it's always like that, Marty. That's the worm logo imposed on the meatball. That just caught my eye. That must be a special 21st century version of it. Because the worm logo in 1974, as part of the Federal Graphics Improvement Program of the National Endowment for the Arts, a government program to just clean up everybody. Yeah, right. Yeah, let me show that. How about me catching that? They did change that, Marty.
Yeah.
I downloaded another one here. That's why we go live. See how the two NASAs are different? That's a NASA type, probably Times Roman. And then the 21st century, they put the worm in the meatball. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I like that. Oh well, there's a lot of things I don't like today that I'm living with, so be it. But well, let's get to the worm. Not very popular in the NASA sector of workers. This was in 1974. We got to reinvent everything again, freshen up stuff. So in 1965, the agency switched to the NASA logo type, nicknamed the worm, a red stylized rendering of the NASA letters NASA. The horizontal bars and the A's are removed in the worm logo. Okay, so so it lived on from 75 to 92. Okay, an 18-year span there for 17-year span. And then the logo was retired by NASA Administrator Daniel Golden. The design was used on, and he resurrected the worm. The design was used only for special occasions and commercial merchandising purposes approved by the Visual Identity Coordinator, the VIC, at NASA's headquarters until 2020. So for 18 more years, the meatball was the official logo of NASA. Then it was brought out. Then they brought the worm out of retirement by Administrator Jim Bridenstine. He reinstated the logo and unveiled on the booster of SpaceX's Crew Demo 2 mission, the first crewed mission of the Dragon. And it marked the first time since 1992 that the logo was used on anything. So they switched back between the worm and the logo, depending what you like. I know I don't think Terry liked the worm very much. Terry White, our NASA garage mechanic. Other people didn't. It wasn't too favorable of it. Kind of too simple. Of course, it's on a line. There's nothing circular about it on there. So that is the story of the logos, present and past, on there. And now you know. But there's one more logo. Two more logos. There is one more logo. That logo. Oh, okay. That logo that I had there is this logo. Was kind of popular for the NACA NASA, celebrating 75 years from the NACA's original happening until 1958, and then 58 to 90 NASA. That's a cool one to have. I like seeing those when they pop up on there. So I noticed the worm too in the meatball, Carlton said. Nobody wants worms in their meatballs. That's what Steve Jokum says. I agree with you, Steve. That was my faux pas, but a good one, that we learned something there, that they snuck the worm logo in the meatball. Oh my gosh. Nope, we don't want worms in our meatballs. But what we're going to do here is go quickly through the 66 years. Here are some of NASA's great spacecraft that they have put together, and no other country has done it. Of course, you got the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo with the lunar module and command module. No one's ever built a spacecraft like the lunar module, which my co-producer Marty worked on in 1968 to 72 as a lead electrical engineer. For those of y'all that joining our show for the first time, we have a lot of interviews with space engineers and from the Apollo and shuttle era. And we're proud that Marty has been part of our museum and one of the best volunteers this museum's ever had as far as raising money. But then you got the rockets, you got the Atlas rocket, the Titan, and of course, look how much bigger the Saturn V is to the Titan. These are the vehicles of legacy that they'll be talking about for 100 years from now. You got some other interesting vehicles that just to peruse real quick of the NASA vehicles. There's your Surveyor spacecraft that landed on the moon, and Apollo 12 landed about 100 yards from it and went up and took pieces of it back to Earth. Some of that's at the Cosmosphere in Kansas I talked about. Of course, the shuttle, astronaut John Blaha personally told me he thinks it will be 100 years before another agency or country makes a reusable spacecraft the size and dimensions of this. Okay. But you got the Starship in the wings there, but it was, Marty, don't you agree? Particularly the pilots and commanders we talked to really rave about how well this spacecraft worked in space, right? Got a comment on that while I take a sip?
Yeah, it works great in space, but is it going to be able to land? I think that's the big question.
I'm talking about the space shuttle. I'm talking about the astronauts we talked to that have been on the space shuttle bemoan the fact that it's still not flying. It was a very worthy spacecraft to fly another maybe 20 years. That's what I was saying, Marty. You agree with that?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really a phenomenal spacecraft.
When it was returning, the last few missions, and the least amount of gripes on it.
Yeah.
In flight anomalies.
Yeah, and boosters were solved. When we lost life, we solved the problem and continued on. The Hubble Space Telescope, arguably the greatest scientific instrument ever built by mankind. It revolutionized and created all kinds of new astrophysics and revolutionized our concept of how the universe started, and that's been picked up now by the James Webb, now orbiting the Earth kind of the Earth. Hubble's orbiting the Earth about 350 miles high. The Webb telescope's about 1 million miles from Earth in a little sweet spot where it just kind of stays there between the Earth and the Moon, called the Lagrange point. Lagrange point. Nothing to do with ZZ Top, folks. Lagrange are these points where gravity balances out and you can stick something there and it doesn't move. And the Webb telescope is just starting to get into its chops after 2 years of operations, and we are really discovering some amazing things And if you don't know what to ask questions, you don't know what you're learning. And boy, we're learning all kinds of new stuff as we're learning what questions to ask. So, see, good morning to Cliff Watson there. Good brekkie to you, and on the Gold Coast of Australia in Pomona. Another great missions to Mars, of course, have to be the Opportunity rovers and Spirit, twin rovers that operated in 2003 for almost 7 years, the other 12. Curiosity and Perseverance are the rovers that are the size of your vehicle in your driveway. If you've got an SUV that are creeping along the surface of Mars. Now, when we talk about rovers on Mars, they don't even go 1 mile an hour. They don't even go 1/10 of a mile an hour. They literally just creep like the crawler does, so to speak. Looks to go so slow that you can walk along beside it. Well, when the crawler's taken out the shuttle, or the Saturn V, or taking out Artemis, that's how slow these go. You'd have to keep stopping and let it catch up with you, because it doesn't even go a walking pace, any of these rovers, because they pioneered, these three rovers they definitely pioneered the artificial intelligence that many of you are enjoying in your vehicles. I've been in Marty's car. Mine's an older vehicle, but it's interesting when he starts falling asleep and it starts beeping, and I say, "Marty, wake up!" And he's already woke up because the signals woke him up on there. There's also something that makes your steering wheel jiggle too, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you don't use the directional and you cross the line to change lanes, it'll shake on you. Or on the right-hand side, just if you cross the line, it'll shake on you.
And this has been pioneered by the spacecraft on Mars that had to have smart intelligence to see the rocks in front of it and drive around it, or pattern where they were going when the Jet Propulsion Lab engineers weren't driving it. Yeah, Marty.
I think we're missing Ingenuity on your list.
Oh yeah, Ingenuity is not on the list there, and that's right. Good one. There's two that I'm gonna add to the list that aren't there that were pioneering, and I should have thought of Ingenuity as the helicopter that was carried there by Perseverance. The Sky Crane is what they're talking about, the landing particularly. These were landed by a Sky Crane of jet that lowered them down to the surface, okay, and then the Sky Crane flew off and crashed, so it'd get out of the way. You got your Voyager spacecraft there in the bottom there, Voyager 2 that we talked about with Jimmy Carter's message to aliens, kind of a howdy neighbors, is what Jimmy Carter said on there, I believe, too. And then you've got the Orion spacecraft there, and I'm not sure what the Orion spacecraft is going to be good for. Of course, it's going to get us to the moon or gateway. Or Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, Dean Babcock is asking, what is the James Webb Telescope life expectancy?
Good question, Dean. I believe it's about 10 years. It has some thrusters on it that are directional. I could be wrong with that. It must have the gyroscopes on there. So Marty will look that up maybe. That'd be a good one. Life expectancy of the James Webb Telescope. Most of these, they lowball it at 10 years. The life expectancy of Opportunity, thank you for bringing that up, Dean, was 90 days. Spirit lasted for 7 years before it actually fell through an ice hole, and the weight of it stuck one of its legs or its wheels in it. And then Opportunity went on for 12 years. And there's a real cool documentary on Opportunity called Oppie that translates the emotional attachment these engineers have with a spacecraft. Go ahead, Marty.
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years for Webb. Okay, good. Thank you, Dean, for asking that question. Cliff Watson says, my name is on Perseverance on Mars. That's something NASA's done for us, Cliff. Many of you have got your name on there too when they had that on there. Marty, did you do that?
Yeah.
Yep, I did that with my family members and everything. we're on Mars. We orbited Cassini and Saturn and all that stuff. Again, pointing out NASA's 66th birthday and things they've done for us. Marty pointed out the little helicopter Ingenuity. It was supposed to fly 5 times. It flew 72 times. All of the space agencies now around the world are going to helicopters to go to Mars. In fact, we've got a helicopter that's going to the moon Titan of Saturn. It's like a grasshopper helicopter that they want to land on this moon that has 200 below zero lakes of flowing methane. So, but they missed out on a couple that were really pioneering. This is Ranger spacecraft that was just solar panels and cameras that was launched by an Atlas rocket right out of the control room we have here in our Cape Canaveral Gallery. Beautiful. You've seen it. That equipment was used to launch Ranger to the moon. The first 6 of them failed, okay, of 9 planned. 6 of them failed. What it was just going to take pictures, has a kamikaze spacecraft going into the moon, and it had, I think, 6 different lenses to get different perspectives, right down to a foot across, to see what the lunar surface was like. The first 6 failed, and NASA VIPs were called in front of Congress to say, wait a minute, what is going wrong here? We're investing this money. You want to go to the moon, and we can't, you're crashing into the moon. This is 1964 and 65. And so they got called on the red carpet, and then Ranger 7, 8, and 9 all worked perfectly. And you could see some of that footage on the in a YouTube channel after you watch us here. Another one is Lunar Orbiter, okay, LO, Lunar Orbiter. That was 5 of those orbited the moon. They took pictures that were processed on board and then sent to by this radar dish to Earth there. Those were very important in deciding where the landing sites were going to be, as it looked at all of the moon, mostly along the equatorial regions, and we figured out exactly Mare Tranquility looked the smoothest. Steve Joachim says Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter are pretty great as well, and he's absolutely right. The Lunar LRO and MRO are taking groundbreaking photos every day, and LRO can see some of the spacecraft that recently landed, like the Intuitive Machines and the Indian Space Agency's rovers have all been LROs imaged them. And then the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has also imaged, like the Beagle, where it crashed into the surface, and our rovers as they're scurrying across the surface. So can't get them all in there, but another one that they forgot about was Sojourner, the part of the Pathfinder that was a big medicine ball, so to speak, that landed on Mars and bounced around. This little thing was like it was that big. I have a replica of it that one of the toy companies like Mattel made. This hypnotized the world. The internet had just come out. I'm going to say this is 1992. I could be wrong, but I think it's around 1992. The internet, I just got my AOL for the first time, and over 2 million people crashed the NASA website wanting to see the latest pictures from this little rover. There it is on the surface of Mars with its solar panel. And this would go up and kiss it had a camera on it on the back and the front, and this would go up to rocks and analyze them on there. So cool. Great observatories of NASA. The Spitzer telescope, okay. Chandra telescope, launched by a shuttle spacecraft. The Hubble Space Telescope, launched by the shuttle. And James Webb Telescope, launched by the big Ariane 5 rocket on Christmas Day 3 years ago, will be coming up. So all of these have helped us reimagine. That's a perfect word for what it's done here, as I hear thunder behind me here going on our Space Coast. Uh, I really don't like using the word reimagine too much, but these have definitely revolutionized how we think of our universe. They see things that the human eye can't see. The Hubble Space Telescope sees what the human eye can see. The other Chandra sees X-rays. Spitzer sees other exotic rays of the spectrum. And that's actually the Devil Eye Nebula there. That's actually the ring nebula of Lyra. But the star that blew up in the center, you can see it's emitting this energy that the human eye can't see. And NASA has made observations in the solar system of all 9 planets. Pluto, I consider it a planet, and its major moons. And this is some big undertaking, okay? These are NASA's missions with the European Space Agency and the Japanese Space Agency. We've also seen close-ups of comets and other asteroids, but that's Shoemaker asteroid there near Earth. That's Eros there, one of the first asteroids in the upper right. So left to right, you got the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, the Moon, Mars, Eros. At the bottom, you've got the planet, dwarf planet Sirius, which is quite interesting. May have some liquid water on it in the asteroid belt. Of course, Jupiter, its moon Io, planet Saturn. Could have picked a better picture than that to show the rings of Saturn. But its moon Mimas. Mimas is a moon of Uranus, as is Miranda. And Mimas became known as the Star Wars moon because of the big crater that looked like the big star attack ship in Star Wars. Neptune, and imaged by Voyager spacecraft, and dwarf planet Pluto by the New Horizons in 2015, and its moon Charon. From 4 billion miles away, it took over an hour and a half for light to come back on that. So, and ending up here, looking at NASA there, that is some of the great accomplishments in 66 years as well, of course, is the space shuttle era. And the space shuttles of October we'll be talking about. Like every month, we enjoy talking about the space shuttle legacy. Each year, I seem to highlight different things and different logos. But we've got 12 beautiful shuttles in the month of October to talk about, Marty, including John Glenn's famous return to flight at age 77, STS-95, and other missions there that we got Mike McCulley's STS-34 mission when he was a pilot, good friend of our museum there, taking Galileo to Jupiter and beyond. And a lot of early missions there with the alphabet numbers there. So we'll hope you all enjoy and tune in October as we're talking about the shuttles and the astronauts involved with those shuttles in there. And thank you for watching. Cliff Watson, Bill Whiting, Doug Forrest, Steve Jokums, Dean Babcock, Dave Stange, Carlton Bailey, and my daughter Jessie with my granddaughters McKinley and Macy. So think of the people in particularly the Upper East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, Western North Carolina, Asheville area hit really hard, life-changing floods there. Their roads will take years to rebuild down some of those hollers along those creeks that just took all the asphalt with them out to the bigger rivers there. So hope that everybody enjoys today's show. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll be talking more about space history, catch up on the astronauts on board the International Space Station, and who knows what to help you all stay curious. Until then, I'm Mark Marquette saying thank you, Marty, for a great job today. And our whole staff here at the American Space Museum, as small and humble as we are all passionate and enthusiastic about one thing, and that is space. So until next time, I'm Mark Marquette saying that I'm passionate about bridging the space between us. Come back and see us.